All right, listeners, welcome to what episode are we on right now? Episode
11
12
or
of
12.
episode 12 of the Real Takes Tennis podcast. Double digits for a while. A little bit of a break for us. We've been hard at work trying to get our next guest on the pod. I think we talked a lot about how the trips to Sacramento were kind of formative for our tennis experience, and the 2.5 hour drives with our parents back home's dead silence after losing 6-4 in the third were just absolutely devastating for our confidence as well as for our tennis experience. But really formed our character and our tennis experience. But just a short stone's throw away at UC Davis, our next guest was absolutely torching guys from the Big West. So we knew we had to have him on. This guy's a former 5-star player, all time, big time, or all Big West conference player for 4 years in a row. 70 plus wins in singles and doubles, and peaked at 638 on singles on the pro tour and on the ATP tour, and 454 in dubs. So we're super excited to get Alec Adamson onto the pod. Alec, how's it going?
Yeah, no, excited to be on here to get here today, guys, and yeah, look forward to chatting with you.
For sure, man. I think a great place to start. We like to do this somewhat chronologically, and we'd love to hear the story about like how you kind of got into tennis. I think everyone has a slightly different story when it happens, but and starts at honestly different ages. So we're curious to hear how you got into it and kind of when you started.
Yeah, so kind of played a lot of sports growing up. I did basketball, baseball, soccer, and tennis. I think probably started around 6 or 7, but kind of played every sport until maybe 12 when I was like, I love tennis the most and really kind of loved that individual aspect. It's just you out there. Um, And yeah, I mean, my mom and grandpa played tennis. So I think we had some family vacations kind of when I was younger and stuff where we'd play a little bit just as a family and kind of just really enjoyed it. And it's funny, I grew a lot my junior year of high school. I think I probably grew maybe about 6 inches in a year. So I was like, shoot, maybe should have stuck with basketball or, one of these other sports. But yeah, really enjoyed tennis and really went full circle with my grandpa. He passed last year, but I got to play tennis with him at 90. So we rallied a little bit at 90. So that was probably really a full circle moment for me when I grew up playing with him when I was 6, 7 years old, and then got to play with him at 28 years old. And that was like my last memory with him, which is pretty awesome.
Yeah, no, I mean, obviously, sorry to hear about that, but that's one of
Yeah,
the beautiful things about tennis, right? It's just like it truly is that lifelong sport where you can
yeah,
you can play. And I mean, we'll obviously get into some of the pickleball stuff later, but I don't
yeah,
care what what anyone says. Tennis is the game. You can play for so long, so that's super
yeah.
awesome to hear. I read that you have like four siblings as well too. Did any of them play tennis as well, or was it you and your grandpa and your mom as well?
A little bit. I had one sister who played a little bit in high school at CDM as well, but was never kind of serious. She didn't want to play tournaments and stuff. I think I grew up in the Midwest in Chicago, and we
Hmm.
moved out to California when I was about 13. So my brother and sister were kind of dragged around the Midwest to all these tennis tournaments, probably when they were young, and that maybe, scarred them a little bit. But yeah, so they played a little bit, but not super, competitively.
No, for sure. I think it's that's definitely different from us where, our siblings, we both have siblings, they both played tennis. And so, I mean, our
Yeah.
parents are obviously super interested in tennis. And so I think to an extent it's different when you have people who are in the game or whose parents and like family members are in the game, right? Because to an extent you have like somewhat of a path laid out for you. But
Yeah.
in this case, it looks like it turned out that I mean, from what you just described, like they were very supportive in your entire journey overall.
Yeah, no, so it was fun. Like my grandpa would send me emails every week asking about matches and stuff. So he like tennis was kind of the way that we really connected and bonded. And my grandma's last trip was to Hawaii. So we were playing at Hawaii in the big West, and my grandma and grandpa got to come out there. It was like kind of one of the last times she was able to travel. So it was super cool that they were able to fly to Hawaii and watch me play over there.
That's amazing, dude. One thing you mentioned is that you played a lot of sports growing up, and I think everyone we've talked to so far has kind of mentioned that as like a key theme.
Yeah.
Do you think that kind of helped your tennis game, or how do you view those early years where you were kind of selecting the sport that you ended up wanting to choose long term?
Yeah, 100%. I think when you're younger, you want to play as many different sports as you can just to kind of get that athletic skills. Because I think sometimes today we have specialty sports, tennis, golf, or, whatever it is, where you specialize too early. And then, sure, tennis is definitely an athletic sport, but there's other skills that you might miss, the footwork in soccer, or, the, defensive, staying low with basketball, so these different like skills. I think when you're younger, you want to get as many as you can. And I think because I didn't specialize until I was maybe 12 or 13 and like pick tennis, that I was less likely to get burned out because you had these kids that were playing tournaments since they were like 9, 10 years old. So I had 4 years where I didn't have that. So I think it really helped where I didn't burn out when, maybe junior, senior year, high school, like a lot of these other kids are burning out and stuff. So I think it helps in that regard. And then also just from a pure athletic skills standpoint.
Interesting. And do you think if you had got that growth spurt earlier on, like maybe 12 or 13, kind of right around the time you were playing tennis, do you think it would have been a hard decision between tennis and basketball, or were you just that drawn to the individual aspect of the sport that you think you would have played tennis no matter what?
Yeah. I mean, it might have been a little tougher decision. I still think maybe I would have picked tennis. I was kind of average height, but I had these huge feet. I think I had size 13 or 14 at like 12, 13 years old. And everyone's like, oh, you're gonna grow, you're gonna grow. Even the doctors, every time we come in, they're like, feet size when you're that young, is pretty rare and stuff. So, and then finally it just came. And then that junior year of high school is kind of when I had my best kind of improvement that year too. Obviously got a lot taller, that helps with serve and a lot of things, but just kind of growing into my body. Luckily, I didn't have growing pains. I know a lot of people that grow that much, knees hurt, joints hurt and stuff, but I was pretty lucky where I felt my body felt pretty good. So
it is interesting that even though like we always associate like being taller with playing basketball and stuff. I think
yeah.
like if you look at the archetype for players now on the pro tour, a lot of the elite players they're tall. Like that almost gives you a natural advantage with like the serve, with the game, and everything. And I think it feels like people don't, like a lot of the people who have kids that are tall at that age don't know that, like, yeah, it's all, to an extent it's almost a cheat code, right? And I mean you're not a lefty, right? But like if someone was lefty and they were 6'6", and I mean
Oh,
that's
yeah.
like a nightmare matchup, right, for almost anyone on the pro tour. I mean, so it's very interesting to see like how tennis is viewed in that aspect.
Yeah, and you've seen it just get a lot taller these last 10, 15 years. Like before, maybe the average height was, 6 foot. Now I think maybe it's up to 6'2", 6'3" for some of the top 20 or 30 guys in the world. So it's definitely trending high or taller. And then you see a bunch of these college guys that, the Isners, the Kevin Andersons, that have played college tennis and then are now, we're, top 20 in the world that can do it.
And Alec, one question from me is, you know, we mentioned last time, I think Big Chris had some trouble working into his body. Uh, how did you, or did you do anything special, or do you think it was kind of lucky that you didn't really have any growing pains? Because I think it seems like there's an adjustment period for a lot of people during that growth spurt.
Yeah, I think it was maybe a little bit of both. Maybe I was lucky. I was sleeping a ton during that time, like 10, 11 hours a day. Just like I think recovery wise, that helps a lot with it. You even see like Fed and some of these guys where they're trying to sleep 11, 12 hours. I'm like, wow. But I mean, I get it because it's like that's when your body's recovering and you want like that gives you the best chance. But I had a really good trainer that junior of high school that really helped me on the track. Like we did a lot of running stuff in the gym and stuff. So I think he was the one, like he saw me growing and stuff. And I think, he some of the exercises he recommended and stuff really helped me and stuff. But yeah, I would probably say a little bit of both.
That's super interesting. And I think one of the things that you kind of just touched on, which is a perfect segue, is like you mentioned that you basically kind of specialized in tennis at 12, which is admittedly, I think, a little later than
Yeah.
what most juniors do. And so I think kind of moving into the junior aspect, like you grew up in SoCal, which is obviously a hotbed for tennis. I'm curious to hear about your like junior experience, especially like in those late middle school slash or like early high school years, and what training was like, what competition was like in those years.
Yeah. So I went to Corona Del Mar High School. So it's one of the really powerhouses in Southern California or the country. So it was kind of rivalries with us and University in Irvine. So we played them every year, kind of in finals of CIF. So their team was absolutely stacked. They had Gage Breimer at one. They had Stefan Menicella, Tyler Liu, Drew Dawson. So, I mean, we always lost them. So they were always kind of our kryptonite, and we lost them in the finals every year. But just being able to play them. So it's like high school tennis, you play one set. So I was kind of my sophomore year, maybe I played two singles, and then I think my junior and senior I played one singles. But just getting to play them like a couple times a year and stuff, where you play a set against Gage, who's probably top 5 in the country at the time. You play Tyler Liu, you play Stefan Menicella. So it's like just the quality and stuff. It really helps you kind of see that higher level. So I mean, you're playing the best of the best right there. So like you lose to maybe I lost the first time to Gage 6-2. I'm like, all right, what can I do better? And then maybe the next time I try to lose, or closer, maybe it's 6-4. So I think it was Gage had never lost in high school tennis, and it might have been my junior or senior year. It was packed. It was playing at CDM. There was maybe a couple hundred people there watching, like crazy atmosphere for high school tennis. And I got up 4-1 on Gage, and everyone was like, oh my gosh, he's gonna finally lose his first set. And then he came back, and I think he beat me 7-5, but still just getting to play these guys like all the time, which that really helped me get a lot better, because it's like you see what you need to improve fast, really fast. Like, they kick your butt, and, then you need to go out there to the practice court and, work on those things. So I think being in Southern California really helped me a lot compared to like the Midwest, when obviously you still have good players out there, but, indoor tennis, it's expensive. It's hard to get court time and stuff, versus California. You can play outside all year long. So now, I mean, I see why they have the depth that they do in Southern California, just because there's such an advantage there.
Yeah, lot to unpack, but I mean, you just gave me like a throwback to those days. I remember like hearing all those names, and like obviously we're from NorCal, right? And so we saw like a lot of those like we heard a lot of these guys' names, and like remember seeing them on like YouTube or whatever, and I was like, dude, these guys are incredible. Like that team is, because for us, Menlo was like the school that was like that, right? And they would dominate everyone in NorCal, and then inevitably meet up with Uni in Newport or in the finals of CIF or anything like that, right? And so it's just so cool to see like the depth of SoCal tennis then. And I think one of the things that I didn't mention was in our graduating class, like the top for the top 25, 7 or 8 of them were from like SoCal, right? They're all from that area. And I mean, that's absolutely ridiculous. I don't think that's true now. And so you see why SoCal is like always dominating NorCal, or like doing really well in those tournaments moving forward.
Yeah, so I was just obviously in Davis a couple last weekend, actually, and so talking to my college coach there, and he was also talking about how it really comes in waves. So that class of 2013 in high school was really strong for SoCal, and then maybe it'll go a few years and stuff, and then there'll be another. So he said almost every 3-4 years there'll be kind of almost that super class, and that's almost when you really need to try to recruit, because then that's where you could get a guy who's much lower down, but in SoCal, but he's really pretty dang good, because he's in the hardest region. So a guy like James Wade, he played with me at Davis all 4 years. He was maybe a lower 4-star, but he came and had a really good career there, and he was kind of in that loaded SoCal class, but he never really traveled for national tournaments. He kind of just played locally and stuff, and really got a lot better while he was in college.
I think it's really cool that you also didn't have to make a decision between high school and juniors, because you think about someone like Jack Sock, and it was a big deal that he played high school tennis, right? Like everyone was like, why would you do this? It's a waste of time. But it's so cool that you had the competition. This was one of those strong classes where, I mean, you're getting equal or maybe even better competition in high school than week in, week out than, the junior tournaments. One question I have is, tactically, what went into that meteoric rise from like 200, 202 on TR and freshman year of high school, and then all the way up to, basically almost being a blue chip senior year, other than the height? Were there any things? I mean, we try to talk a lot about kind of the blueprint for juniors and parents. Were there any things that you did that you think worked, or anything if you were to go back in time you would do differently?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think the biggest thing is when I was younger, kind of not as tall, I was kind of counter puncher. So that's kind of what I did when I was younger and stuff. And then I had to transition to obviously a game that, it's harder to play that when you're, 6'5", 6'6". So obviously I think serve got a lot better, forehand got a lot better. And I think just fitness wise, learning how to play, tactically, all those things got a lot better. Like maybe I wasn't as fit freshman year of high school. And then my junior, senior year high school, going to the gym or to the track 4 days a week. I mean, that really kind of gets you in a pretty good shape. And even kind of when I was playing in college and, pro for a little bit after graduating, I think fitness was always a huge thing. Like I always needed to believe like that I was the fittest guy on the court. So you could always kind of rely on that because, guys would be like, 500-600 in the world, but maybe they're not fit. But, that's something that I was, even when it could be really hot, it could be humid and stuff. I always wanted to kind of have that fitness and stuff. So I think in high school that's something that was huge. And then obviously growing into the body a little bit more, improve, everything a little bit and stuff. But I think just kind of tactically learning how to play, changing, my game style and stuff to be a little more aggressive, come in the net when I can and stuff. That was huge. And then to your question about what I would do differently, I think the biggest mistake is that young juniors do today is they try to win in the 10s and 12s, because the parents want, it's almost like an ego thing where they want their kids to do well. But I mean, let's be honest, it doesn't mean anything when you're 10 and 12. There's a bunch of kids that I remember growing up with that didn't even go on to play college. They either quit, got burned out and stuff, and they were the best of the best in the 10s and 12s. So I think that's probably the biggest thing where you want to be building a game that can have you succeed in college or the pros, because that's really what matters and stuff. So I think working early on the volleys and the net game and stuff, like sure, you're tiny in the 10s and stuff. You're going to get passed, you're going to get lobs, but working on those skills early is just going to set you up later because nobody's really practicing those skills when you're in the 10s. Everybody's trying to hit a forehand or a backhand or a serve. So I think if I could go back and do it differently, I would not worry about any of the results at 10 or 12, which is hard. It's not an easy thing to do, but if you can take a step back and say, and that's where having a really good coach matters because they can see that. They can see where, you need to be doing, so I worked with a coach down in San Diego, Christian Grow, who has trained Brandon Nakashima, Tommy Haas, a bunch of players, and he could just kind of see it. So I was on the court a lot with Brandon Nakashima when he was 16, and he's like, yeah, this is where Brandon's going to be next year. This is where he's going to be at 18. So he almost had this idea in his head, and you could just see it. So it's like Brandon wasn't a serve and volleyer, but in practice he was working on it. Just on these skills. So it's like you almost looking back, like if I would have been able to do that when I was younger, tried to be more aggressive and work on, coming in or working on my serve when I was younger and stuff, I think then I'd be a much better player in high school where you're just in a better spot and then maybe a slightly better in college. And then, so you see you're a little bit better at every level. And then also just kind of, I changed my service motion a lot and it didn't get really good until almost after college. And I think if I kind of had that same service motion for 5 or 10 years, then it's like you just gets, it just kind of goes like this. So those are a couple things that I would do differently for sure.
Oh man, Alec, that's so insightful. And I feel me and Pete probably feel pretty validated here because we talk about this stuff a lot in terms of winning the long game
Yeah.
versus winning the tournament and how
Yeah.
a lot of people are kind of short-sighted in the juniors. Do you think in a way it's causality is hard to prove one way or another, but do you think in a way that being that big man who actually learned to counterpunch first made you a better all-around corner, kind of on the flip side of the token of like you did want to develop a more aggressive game, but I feel like what we've noticed in the Pro Tour is some of the guys who are able to just out talent their opponents early don't have that dog mentality that it seems you have. So do you think that kind of actually played in your favor a little bit?
That definitely helped. I think competitiveness and stuff, because I always kind of felt like I was trying to catch up to these guys, whether it be in high school, the university guys and stuff. So I think I always kind of had a chip on my shoulder, which I think definitely helped me and stuff. So maybe that would have been a little different if, I was just ripping huge forehands at, 12 years old. But yeah, I mean, I think there's definitely a mix. You even see it with some guys like, John Isner, like massive serve, but then he was, even when he was younger and stuff, he played defensively from behind the court. So you can even see it. You're like, why isn't John Isner, coming in and ripping a forehand more or volleying and stuff? Because it's ingrained. So it's tough to make these big changes and stuff when you've done it for so long. So I think you can shift it a little bit, but it's tough to like shift the needle from here to like here, because it's like, you're comfortable, and when pressure situations come, you kind of go back to what you're used to. So it's like, I think you can shift it a little bit, but it's tough to make massive changes, if that makes sense.
For sure. And one other follow-up was what exactly, if you don't mind me asking, did you do in those gym and track sessions? I think tactically it would be pretty helpful to know. Was it a lot of sprints? Was it a lot of like weights? How'd you structure those workouts outside of tennis?
Yeah. So the track workouts, those were brutal. Like, we were 2 days a week, I think, on the track. And the guy used to be like an Olympian, kind of coached all these runners and lots of different sports. So he was like the track guy. So we would just do these brutal workouts. It changed at the distances on the day, a lot of 400s. So you do 8, 10, 12 400s, where you have a minute or a minute and a half in between, and then you go again. So I think just doing something like that, like, sure, the distance is a little bit longer. Like, let's say you run it in, minute 10, minute 15, which is a pretty good time for the repeats. The average point in tennis isn't going to go more than like 30 seconds. So you're 25 seconds on, 25 seconds off. So a lot of those like hit workouts, like high intensity, I forget what the other IT stands for, but workouts like that, where you're going really hard, like almost all out, and you have a little bit of rest to try to simulate like the points. So yeah, I remember just doing these like crazy workouts and stuff. And sometimes like it was me and this guy, Julian Ruffin, he played at UC Riverside. We did them together, and Julian was throwing up like every other workout and stuff. It was just like, looking back, like, it was so tough, but then it's like, doing it just helped you realize like, wow, I really can do this. And you see how much fitter you get from it. The other ones we'd do treadmill at like full incline, at like 15% incline. You'd go for like 30 seconds, and then you'd have to come off and then do it again. So just, he had us doing all these running things. He was almost training us like we were track athletes and stuff. So like, just doing stuff like that 2 days a week, I mean, I'd never done anything like that. That's like where you can improve so fast, because you get like this crazy fitness level just from running and stuff. And then we also did weights and stuff in the gym another 2 times a week. So I think that was the biggest thing for me, because you go from not really being in the gym much to going, 2 days a week and 2 days of running and stuff. And, that helped me, on the tennis court a lot.
Dude, your VO2 max is probably off the charts. I would be very curious on if you did a test what your result would be. But did you ever, two questions. One, how much confidence did that give you in those like 3 set matches? And did you even ever cramp, or do you think this just totally kind of insulated you from a lot of fitness and injury issues?
Yeah, I think that definitely have a high VO2 max, and I think my resting heart rate got around down to like the lower mid 40s. So even when I'd
Wow.
go to the doctor, like, are you still breathing? Like, everyone's like, no, I mean, this is normal and stuff. So you see that like in athletes, when that resting heart rate can get really low. Obviously, you lose that now, so it's like not where it was. But I think, yeah, it just gives you the confidence and stuff for 3 setters and stuff. Like, I'm fitter. Like, might lose, maybe they're a little bit better on the court, but in a lot of those matches, it comes down to a few points. If you can be the fitter guy, I think that helps a ton. I never cramp during a match, which I was like super proud of during my career. I did cramp once after. It was in NCAA's in Tulsa, Oklahoma. That was one of the hottest I'd ever been in. So I played a 3-set match, first round NCAA's, lost to Sam Shropshire from Northwestern, who played Cameron Norrie's second round and lost in 3. And then after that match, I think I lost 7-5 in the third, had like a match point, and came back to the hotel room, just jumped on the bed and like tried to completely relax, and my whole body just like seized up. So that was the one time I did cramp afterwards, and I almost then tried to drink too much water too quickly, which I guess you can do. Because then I guess I had to like throw it up, because my body, it was like almost too much for the body to take. But I took a lot of pickle juice, especially when I was playing in hot, humid places and stuff. That helped me a lot. I'd have these little pickle juice shots, and whenever I, was in a third set, I would take one of those because I think it almost, from what I've read about it, it tricks your mind because there's so much sodium in it and stuff. So even though you may be close to cramping, it almost tells your mind that, that you're not cramping. So pickle juice and electrolytes are, huge savers.
Tons to unpack here. I mean, I think first of all, right, like we're seeing, I mean, you see even just as simple as like the US Open, right? Like
Yeah.
Rublev and Medvedev, like in the third set, and these guys are like almost dying. And I think it's the tough part about tennis where like you have to optimize your training for both
Yeah.
length because there's no time clock, and you have to also be able to like just continue to go really hard for really short bursts, right? And I think
Yeah.
quick one point on this, I know I've heard at least that your coach at Davis, Eric, was a huge proponent of like just being really fit in general. I think he coached at San Diego, if I'm not mistaken, prior to Davis, and one of my friends who went there was saying that yeah, he was all about fitness because that's how apparently he made his like gain from being like an okay player to like a really good player. And so I'm kind of curious to hear about your Davis experience in terms of like that fitness aspect in general. Did you feel like the workouts became harder once you went to Davis because of his philosophy, or do you feel like they were easier because of how prepped you were?
Yeah. So yeah, Eric's was always kind of huge on the fitness. We did probably running 2 times a week. But to be honest, it was very similar to the stuff that I was already doing, a lot of 400s. He loved the stairway to heaven. So you'd run up the stadium stairs and then you'd do a lap and do that for like 30, 45 minutes. Those were always brutal. Um, but we were just a pretty fit team. We Bryce McKelvey, great athlete. He was kind of always really fast. And a lot of the guys on the Davis team. So I think because we had such a good athletic group and everybody was super motivated, he pushed us really hard. Even kind of just talking to him now, he's like, yeah, your group, I was able to kind of, sometimes, you don't know how hard you can push people because you don't want them to get hurt. Injuries are obviously a huge thing and stuff, but like kind of with our group, he's pushed us to the max. I remember we were joking about a story. He had a little cabin up north of Sacramento. So we went up there for a team retreat one year. And it's in the altitude, maybe it's 5,000 to 6,000 feet. So it's already kind of tough to breathe in. So we did maybe a 4 or 5 mile run through the mountains, through the elevation and stuff. We had no idea where we were because everything like looks the same with these roads. So maybe we have like, how should I say this? So we're running, it's kind of getting towards the end, and we think we're almost back. He says, hey guys, if you want to finish strong, you can sprint the last 200 meters. So we're all like motivated and young. We're like, all right, let's sprint it. Well, it turns out it was an extra mile. So we sprint the last mile. Nobody wanted to finish last because I think the last guy had to, do something or, clean up the dinners, something like that. So we ended up sprinting this last mile and we were all so dead. I think it was the first day up in the mountains and stuff, but pretty funny, like looking back and, with Eric and stuff on that.
Oh man, those are some crazy team retreats.
Yeah.
That's awesome to hear that it was
Yeah.
so that your group was so motivated. I
Yeah.
wanted to take a quick step back and ask, that transition from junior to college. One, kind of how'd you make that decision to go to Davis? What went into that? And then two, I mean, you just kind of jumped right into the driver's seat at Davis, playing one basically all 4 years. How'd you get prepared for that? Did you know you were just going to kind of walk in and play one?
Yeah. So it's funny when I signed with Davis, it was in October of my senior year. And I think at the time I was maybe tennis recruiting, maybe 110, maybe 120. So I think I was there. James Wade was kind of right around the same. And then Bryce McKelvey was maybe like 180, 190. So I think when Eric signed us, he kind of thought we were all pretty similar level. And Eric was always, like, because he knows a lot of the guys they'll sign and then kind of chill out their senior year before they go to college. And that was something he didn't really want. And I didn't want it either because I was improving a lot at that time. So I think my senior year, I played something crazy. Like, I don't know how many matches, maybe it was like 100 matches my senior year. And had some really good results, had a good run at Winter Nats, I think that year. And just kind of really wanted to keep getting better because my tennis was just keep, on the rise. So it's like, I wasn't like these other guys that were kind of burned out and stuff. Cause I was like, for me, the better results you have, the more excited you get because you're like, wow, I mean, I'm improving. If I can clean up a few of these other things, I can keep getting better and stuff. So I wanted to just keep playing as much as I could. And I think that last year, is when I really caught up to maybe some of the guys in SoCal specifically that maybe signed and then didn't play as much their senior year. So that kind of helped me. And then whatever, I finished maybe 30 in the year. So I had 30 in tennis recruiting. So I think that last year really helped me a ton because um, I got to play those higher level guys and kind of really prepared me for Davis. So I think coming in and playing number one so early really kind of helped me mature even faster because you don't have the time to maybe, get used to it and stuff. So I think, yeah, being at Davis, playing one, you play the number one from Stanford, UCLA, Cal, USC. So it was almost like a repeat of high school where I was the lowest guy. I was playing the Gage Brimers, all these, guys that were much better. And then the same thing in college. So, all right, maybe I lose them the first time. Let's figure it out. Let's go back. Let's work with Eric and the coaches there and try to get better. So I think, and it was almost like comfortable because I had already done it before. And then, now I'm in kind of in the same place as I was 3 years before, if that makes sense.
No, 100%. I think when you say 100 matches, is that 100 including your high school season or just like
It
tournaments
might have been
exclusively?
100 with it might have been 100 without the high school because I remember
Dude,
I was playing like every opportunity I could that last year.
I'm looking at TRP right now, 65 to 20.
Yeah.
85 matches, and that's going up to August or whenever,
Yeah.
probably when you're not playing tournaments. So I totally believe you probably played like 130 matches.
Maybe
You're
with high school. Yeah, seriously.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Talk a little bit about the Davis recruitment process. Like in that time, like like obviously you ended up playing on the tour afterwards. At that point in time, was like a stepping stone to the pro tour in consideration for you, or were you just okay? Let me just go somewhere where I can play and like get starting time.
Yeah, I think I really wanted to, there's a couple of factors. I really wanted to stay in California. I wanted to go to a good academic school, wanted to go somewhere that I could play right away. So I think those were kind of my three things, versus maybe going to UCLA or USC and being one of the bench guys. But I think looking back, like that probably wouldn't have been as good a fit for me because I get better playing. When I play all the matches and stuff. So if I was kind of on the bench or maybe 5, 6, 7 somewhere like there, I think it would have been a lot harder for me. And then also I wouldn't have been able to play the best guys. Like sure, you're still playing the lower guys from some of these good teams and stuff, but playing number ones and stuff of these good schools really kind of you learn more. So it's like if you play guys around your level, you're not going to get exploited as much. But if you play someone really, really good, then it's like it shows you right away, like really clearly, what you need to get better at. So I think it almost kind of the learning curve speeds up, if that makes sense. So I always tried to always stretch myself and play as high guys as I could and in college and then even some of the summers and stuff, because I think that's where you improve the most. And then going back to your question on why Davis. So, I mean, went to a lot of different visits. I did, um, a bunch of some private and public schools in California, but just kind of fell in love with the college town of Davis and really kind of believed in Eric. I had always kind of wanted to play tennis after, but maybe when I had signed, it was more of a dream than kind of a reality and stuff. So Eric kind of really believed in me and thought I could, improve my tennis a lot. So I think Eric was also a big reason why I chose Davis. And yeah, I mean, super happy with the decision, loved it there. And I think it really prepared me a lot to what I did when I played after college as well.
And I mean, it's such an underratedly like good conference, right? Like
Yeah.
Irvine's really good, Cal Poly's really good. There's like a lot of really good like teams in that conference. And I remember watching. I mean, you're also just near NorCal as well, right? So you can
Yeah.
play like Stanford, Cal. Like there's so many good teams like in that area. I'm curious on your first season at Davis. You started off with like 20 plus wins in singles, and I'm curious, like, did like talk to us a little bit about that season overall and what you felt like going into it, because obviously you're coming off playing like a lot of matches in between your like senior and freshman year of like high school and college. So did you feel like you were like the best player on the team right from the start?
Yeah. I mean, I felt prepared. I think definitely the more I played, the more confident I felt because I think I'm always about the proponent that you want to play people below your level, at your level, and then above your level. You need a pretty good mix. So I was always trying to get the balance of where you would trying to get 2 wins for every loss. Like that's where like that sweet spot, I feel like level wise. So a lot of the coaches I had growing up and stuff, that's where we tried to get to. So it's like, what events can I play where I can win 2 for every 1 loss? Because that's kind of the sweet spot for confidence. So let's say if I was playing futures when I was senior in high school, I was going to lose a lot of the matches and stuff. So that's not a good balance. So maybe it was those national tournaments at that stage, and then in college, those collegiate tournaments where I could play the right ones. So I think that's the balance that I tried to do my senior year of high school. And I mean, I did win a lot my senior year, and I think that's why I was pretty confident going into Davis as well, because I had won a lot, also lost some, but I think whatever that tennis recruiting record that you alluded to was, it was a lot of wins and not as many losses. So that was kind of the balance where we tried to get to. Um, and then I think I started it too, maybe for those first few matches. I think a lot of college coaches, they want to start you a little lower, get you confident stuff, rather than play you too high, because you don't want to lose confidence right away as a freshman. So I think it kind of worked perfect, where I think I started out at 2 and started winning, and then finished my year playing my freshman year playing 1, and then yeah, I mean, I think everybody's good. So that's the thing. So it's like, it's also a little bit matchup wise and stuff. I think some guys, maybe they match up a little bit better lower in the lineup, whether if there's a lot of grinders and kind of counter punchers and stuff versus, maybe higher up, there's more variations. Like you'll see some guys serve volley, you'll see some guys really attacking. So I think you play a larger variety of opponents kind of at that higher end of the lineup, which I think helped me because I think my game is pretty adaptable and stuff. So I think that also had an influence on it too.
Man, Alec, you just blew my mind. I hope people are listening to this because 2 wins for every loss is like that's like a life mentality right there. I feel just making sure that you're getting confidence, but at the same time staying humble and knowing where to improve and knowing that there's longer to go. I absolutely love that mentality. I'm gonna start using that for everything in life. I wanted to fast forward to your junior year where you know, you kind of start out that season slower. How'd you turn it around and make it such a historic season where, first player to qualify for the NCAA tournament singles, first ranked NCAA singles player, first Big West player of the year from Davis. How'd you turn it around and what was kind of your favorite memory from that run?
Yeah, so my junior year maybe was my best year. It definitely was a little slower start at the beginning of the season. I'm going to backtrack to summer. So summer between my sophomore and junior year, I went with 2 other guys on the Davis team to France. So we went and played they have kind of a men's open circuit over there where you can play a ton of matches and stuff. So I went there for a month, trained with a French coach. It was kind of the first time that I've been to Europe. So for me, that was kind of like a huge, just growing summer wise, going over there for 4 or 5 weeks. I played about 25 matches in 3 weeks of tournaments. So normally you're not playing that much, but I was doing really well. So it's nice with the French system. This is kind of perfect, two wins for every loss. Like the French system's great. So basically how the French system works is every match is kind of competitive because in the sense that you're not going to play somebody really far below your level and not somebody far way above you. So you're going to play somebody kind of right in that sweet spot. So if I can compare it to UTR, let's say I was a 12 UTR, I'm going to play somebody right below my level, maybe like an 11, the first one. So a match I should win, but it's going to be competitive. Maybe it's going to be 3-3, 3-4. And if you beat that person that you should likely win, you're going to play somebody right at your level. So then next, you're going to play somebody at 12 UTR. So that should be a 50-50 match. If you're playing well, you should win. If not, maybe you're going to lose. And if you win that one, then you play somebody one level above that. So then maybe you're playing a 13 UTR. So I think in France, they put me a little lower than what my level was, but that was great because I got a ton of matches. Like I think I won 20 out of the 25 matches. So pretty good ratio there of win to loss, and just seeing the different, styles and stuff. So played a few tournaments on the red clay. They have these, weird courts. They're called quick. It's a hard court, but it has holes in it. So it's just like you're playing these guys on different surfaces, completely different styles. And you play I played a 45-year-old man because everybody kind of plays the same tournaments and stuff. So you just like this guy used to be 200 in the world, but he's 45, but he's still really damn good. So that was an amazing summer in France because I got to play these tournaments and play a bunch of different guys that I had no idea about, which was really fun for me. So I had a really good summer, and then I had a good fall where I made the finals of Battle of the Bay, that big tournament in San Francisco. Had a bunch of ranked wins there. Did well in a couple other fall tournaments. So I had a great fall right after that, summer in France, which I don't think is a coincidence. And I think after the fall, I got up to maybe 30, 39 in the country. So really good kind of college ranking. I was super happy about it. I had been working about that for a while. Didn't have a good start then to my spring season. So kind of felt the pressure. I had that kind of target on my back where everybody was, gunning for me because, when you're ranked, everybody wants to be you because they're trying to get ranked, So kind of felt this. I was always kind of that underdog, high school to college. And then now I was kind of like the guy. I was, one of the highest ranked guys on the West Coast. And, now everybody that was playing wanted to, really beat me. So one of our first trips of the season was Air Force, which was altitude at like 7,500 feet. You think it would be pretty good, but I really struggled with that. So I was playing a guy from I think Northern Colorado, had maybe two pretty bad losses in the in that tournament. So obviously not a great start. And then I was supposed to play a guy from Air Force. That match, I had lost my first two. Eric's like, we think it's the best interest of the team to take you out of the singles. So I just played doubles in that match. So I was pretty disappointed. I never got benched before, but we had our team won 4-3, so it ended up working out well. For like 10 minutes, I was really disappointed. I'm like, come on, I'm ranked, I'm number one guy. How did Eric just bench me? And then I was like, well, if that's what he thinks for the team at altitude, like, I respect the decision. I'm going to go out and I'm going to cheer as hard as I can. I'm going to do whatever I can to help the team. So I ended up losing my voice. I was like screaming so loud, and we ended up winning, I think 4-3, and it ended up working out well. But just like looking back, it was, that first maybe 10 matches, maybe I started less than 500 there. So I had like a pretty tough start. And then kind of after that, I was dropping in the rankings. Maybe then I was, in the hundreds or something. So then I kind of felt less pressure then and kind of had a good, maybe middle of the season. And then I was kind of right at the cusp, my end of my junior year, to kind of try to make NCAA. So if you're the highest ranked guy from your conference, you automatically get to go, or if you're top 60 in the country. So I think I was in the hundreds, maybe I was 120. So I was kind of right on the edge. I was talking with Eric. I'm like, how are there any ranked teams we can play? So our schedule was set. We had a rain out against maybe some school. So we had one more date left. I'm like, Eric, let's call Cal. Let's go play them. I want give me a chance to kind of make it to NCAAs. So we called Cal. They had a date. So we ended up playing them. I remember really well, I think on a Wednesday midweek. So I was pumped. I'm like, here's my chance. So we had Florian Lacotte was the number one from Cal, top 20 in the country. I'm like, all right, this is my chance. So we get out there. We're losing as a team. I think it was close doubles point, didn't get it. And I think we're down 3-0 as a team. I'm like, shoot, a lot of times these Pac-12 schools play clinch. And then they stop it. So I won the first set. I think I was down in the second. So I was like, come on, at least let us play. So Peter Wright at the time was the Cal coach. He was out there, and you could see he was like thinking about calling and stuff. I'm like, come on, Peter, give me the chance. Let us finish. We'll play a breaker and stuff. And literally, Eric came over and talked to Peter, and they let us finish. They let the team finish, so they didn't play the clinch. So we played a 10-point tiebreak, and I'm like, all right, here's the chance you want to get it. I basically had to win that match to go to NCAAs because I think I needed those. It was a huge ranking win and stuff. So if I got it, then I would go, and I knew that too. So it was kind of like the pressure where that either you do it or you don't. So I think I ended up winning like 10-3. Played a really good 10-point tiebreak. Was pumped, and right after that got me to right around 100. So that qualified me for NCAA. So I was first point person in Davis to go, and I think then I got Big West Player of the Year and stuff. So it was almost like you look back to those small moments, it was, that Cal match, because say we don't finish it or I lose and stuff, I don't go. So, it's like, it's funny how like we almost weren't even scheduled to play them, and just kind of how that kind of happened. It was a pretty cool story.
I mean, this is so sick. There's like so much to unpack here. I think it kind of that story is like the epitome of just like tennis in general, right? Where like
Yeah,
you just need certain chances at certain points, like
yeah,
break point here, chance there,
yeah,
and your story kind of changes, right? I think
yeah,
like it's so interesting. I mean, you mentioned like Colorado and just playing in those conditions, and I mean, not only is the altitude different, but like or like the altitude and the weather different, but like the
yeah.
balls are different. It's like a completely different game style. And this is I don't think I've heard this that like like a coach decided to pull out like the top like guy on the team because he felt like it would be better for the team to win. I mean, I like there's definitely a way he could have stuck you like lower in the lineup at the time. Did you like what are those kind of discussions like when you talk to your coach about potentially lineup decisions? Is that like have you ever did you ever think about maybe talking to him and fighting?
We would talk a lot about kind of like
Yeah,
matchups wise, like, you can move a guy potentially one spot. So it's not like you can
yeah,
move from 5 to 1, but a lot of those were maybe are 5 and 6 or 3 and 4, they're very similar. So
yeah,
that's kind of where um the decisions happen. It's like I knew the players very well. So Eric and I and the assistant kind of talked a lot about, oh, where do we think this guy matches up better and stuff. And sometimes we would even flip our 1 and 2 just because you want to kind of give that team, especially when it's like a 50-50 match, win 4-3, it kind of comes down to, that 1 point. So if you can kind of get both and it's a better matchup for both people, that's kind of when those decisions get made. But yeah, like altitude wise, it's like, I was a guy that really needed a lot of time to get used to it. And I think maybe we only had a day of practice. And yeah, I just wasn't very good. So it's, I mean, crazy altitude. Like you aim for the service line and you're missing long. And especially if you have like a really, really spinny ball, like the guys that played the best were like super flat. Like we had a guy that was lower on our team, maybe played 5 or 6, and really clean guy. It's really flat and stuff. He played unbelievable at altitude, played some of his best tennis. But another kind of full circle moment was I was down in El Salvador. This was maybe 2019. And I was kind of at that point where I wasn't really enjoying it. I was kind of close to, ready to move on and stuff. And I was in El Salvador. It's maybe 5,000 feet altitude. So still not, um, still a big difference. Not as big as Air Force, but you notice it. It's tough to serve. It's tough to return. It's tough to do all these things. So get down there. I was with my friend Luke Gamble. He played at Princeton. Um, Go out and play singles. Maybe have played horrible, lost maybe one of my worst matches on the tour. I'm like really down. I'm like, maybe it's time to move on. And he's like, let's play doubles. Like, I almost was gonna leave and I wasn't gonna play doubles because I was so just done with this place. He's like, no, let's play. So we play. We win the doubles there in the future without dropping a set. Played really good. So I was almost after I had like 3-4 days in the altitude, I feel really good. But it's just it took me some time. So I went there. Then we're going to go to Cancun. So you go from high altitude to sea level. So sometimes that can be. Sometimes players don't like that. I'm like, all right, let's see. So we get down there and I play doubles with him again. We start winning again, and then I'm also in the singles. And I never won an ITF in singles before, and that had been kind of my biggest goal. I had it on my wall. I'm like win an ITF in singles, one of my biggest goals. And right after kind of being the week before my lowest point, when I lost that first round to a player I thought I was way better than, and then went on to win the doubles there, went on to win the doubles in Cancun, and then won my first singles in Cancun that same week. So it was kind of like that's where they say the highs are so high and the lows are so high, because literally the week before I was literally thinking about quitting tennis and was really kind of almost depressed. I mean, not depressed in the sense, but just kind of bummed. You're out there by yourself, and in a different country. And to go from that point then to where you almost relax. I've heard so many stories about guys where they're thinking about quitting and then they have one of the best tournaments, the weekend after, because you almost loosen up. It's like you're playing with house money, you kind of relax and stuff. So that was to the point where having almost my worst week turning and winning the doubles into a decent week. And then winning in Cancun, the next week in singles and doubles, that was probably my most proud moment, because it's like all that work I'd put in for years, comes to the moment and stuff where there's so many guys that never win an ITF in singles. Like, so to do that and finally achieve that goal was just like, I mean, I was so happy, call my parents, my coach, and just like, wow, this is why it's all worth it just for that moment.
No, 100%. It's I mean, to your credit also, right? It's something that only very few people like achieve. It's not easy. Like you have to win 5, 6 matches in order to even do that. I think one of the things that we haven't talked about at all is like, I mean, you talked about your fitness work, the tactical work in juniors, but even, I mean, 10-3 in the third to be able to like get to NCAA is like you need a
Yeah.
certain level of like mental toughness to do that. And we haven't talked at all about like kind of the mental training and your mindset going into tennis matches, right? Like, I think one of the things that's interesting is very few people always focus on, or a lot of people focus on the win, but in juniors and stuff, they're not used to like actually losing, which unless you're the Federers or the Nadals of the world, you're going to have to get used to that. Talk to us a little bit about your like the mental approach and maybe training and what even your coaches preach to you about like mental training and what you should think during certain points in the match.
Yeah, I think that's another thing that from like junior to college to pro is, improved a lot, because it's different levels. Like, I think a coach explained to me once that in the juniors, maybe you lose focus and you lose a set, like because you lost focus, a guy cheated you or something. So it's like, then maybe in college, maybe it's 3 games, where you have a chance, you lose focus, you get pissed and stuff, and then the next level is like lower level pro. Maybe it's a game or two, and then maybe the highest level pro, it's a point or two. So it goes in these stretches and stuff where you're all trying for the same margins, but it's just different levels. Like juniors, you could lose a set and then come back, but like, so you can afford less. So it's like you need to be able to move point to point very quickly and have a really short-term memory. That's the biggest thing, because it's like if you try to dwell too much on the mistake or the great shot you hit, then you're already done. The next point's passed and stuff. So you almost really have to like try to move on and try to think that whatever happened. You really can't change it. That's the hardest thing. So, and then a lot of the times when, let's say it's 5-4 in the third, you're serving for the match or something. You almost have to trick yourself, trick your mind that it's just another service game and stuff. So sometimes I would tell myself that it's 1-0 in the first set or something. And another thing, sometimes when it was a big game, when I was trying to serve it out, maybe it's 0-0, but I would tell myself it was love 30. Like, I almost changed the score in my mind to try to put more emphasis, like, okay, love 30, I have to win this, versus it's the first point, because the first point is so important every game. Like, people don't realize it, but going up 15 love or love 15, it really has a big input on, the guys and stuff. Like, so if you can win that first point, in one of these important games and stuff, it makes a massive difference. So I would tell myself, I go up the line, the umpire calls love, and I say it's love 30, and then it just kind of it gives me kind of more of a, I don't know how to say it, just like a intensity that I know I need to win this point. So it's like I almost played better sometimes when I was down. When I was down break point, like I would serve better and stuff. So that's why I would try to tell myself, because maybe when I would get a little complacent then first point of the game and stuff, and thought that it wasn't as important, but it really is. So that's kind of why I try to almost, trick my mind, if that makes sense.
It does. And yeah, the stories and advice you're given, you're just spitting game right now. I wanted to maybe rewind all the way back to kind of the beginning of this particular thread on, before that junior year playing in France. Do you think the USTA maybe needs to change the system a little bit to mimic that? Just because, I'm thinking back to my career and there were so many 0-0 wins and losses, right? Just like you're winning 0-0 first round, losing 0-0 second round. You're not really playing people at that level, at your level, I should say. Uh, what do you think the USTA can do to, I think more mimic that system?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's not good for anybody to win 0-0 or lose 0-0, because you see almost a lot of these junior players that maybe it's their first tournament or they're 10 or 11 and they lose 0-0. Like, I mean, that's a huge destroyer of confidence. So I think it's awful for the person winning it, because they're like, should I go all out? You know, I'm so much better than this person. So I think it's a waste of time from kind of both people's standpoint. So I do think that there needs to be a change to that. So different ways that you could do it is you could break it up by level. So let's say that you have 64 people in an event, put them into four brackets of 16, put them by level. UTR, what I work for now, we try to do that a lot with our pro tennis tour is group them up so that you play people of different level. So if you're in the PTT format, you have four groups of five. So you play everybody in your group, but it's a snake format. So you have somebody from the top four in yours and then the next four. So you're playing, it's almost like you're playing people above, below, and at your level. So hopefully you can get to that 2-1 ratio that I talked about. But yeah, I think that something needs to change because it's no fun to go out and it's never fun to win 0-0 and it also sucks to lose 0-0. So I think that's definitely something that needs to be changed because France just does it so well. Like you would rarely see an 0-0 match in France unless a guy just played really well, but he's at that level. He's at that same level. Um, and you almost play less matches if that makes sense. You can play more tournaments quickly because maybe you only play two tournaments in that or two matches in that tournament in France, then you move on to the next one versus USTA you could play 4 or 5 matches, but those first 3 rounds are nobody good, and then you'll just play somebody really high. So you'll jump from playing nobodies and then you'll have to play somebody really good, but you don't have those matches in your belt. So I think it's kind of counterproductive to everybody.
100%. And I think it's like part of what like makes, I mean, that's part of like the point of ETR as well, right? Is that it's
Yeah.
you get matched up with people who are at your level, and the more
Yeah.
people you at your level, the better you get. And I mean, you were so fortunate in Southern California and in Davis to have that opportunity to play like a lot of really good players at your level. And I think this is a perfect segue into like kind of the pro tour stuff because you played some guys who are like on the tour and have like made it big, right? Like you played Taylor Fritz in high school, and you played Eubanks in college as well. And I mean, you mentioned like Nori and Rinderknecht was there during that time as well. Like a lot of guys who are like top 50 making a living on the tour. Talk to us a little bit about the experience of playing those types of like elite players and what you observed from those types of those matches.
Yeah, I mean, I remember playing Taylor Fritz. I played him twice in high school. I'm 1-1 against him. So I think playing him, he was always, you could see the potential was there, like serve, forehand, just, you know, crazy. Because I think I was maybe a senior in high school. Maybe he was a freshman. So I was a few years older than him. But you could just see with the quality of the ball, the serve, the forehand, all these things that he had it. He just maybe hadn't quite put it all together. He would still kind of go through some patches where, maybe he misses 4 balls in a game versus, now he makes them all. But you could just kind of see. Um,
And this is funny to us because we actually saw like we watched like we watched a little bit of the match for that you played against Taylor, and it's I mean
yeah,
similar to what you're talking about, right? Of like your serve being noticeably different at that point in time too. Like we
yeah,
saw another video of like you playing in
yeah,
Singapore and serve was noticeably tighter, and I mean
yeah,
Taylor had no leg bend on his serve
yeah,
almost in high school, and now he's improved so much, and you can see that like certain aspects of his game that are here now were there then, but there was a certain lack. There's some elements that were missing, which is what you're talking about.
yeah. But you just kind of see like that, wow, like at whatever 15, like he's serving 115, 120
15,
serves,
yeah.
it's just like, wow, like that's where like he obviously changed the knee bund and a few things like that, but the motion itself stayed the same. So he had that same motion from when he was 12 years old. So like 12 to 18, that's 6 years of doing it all the same every single time. Like that's what I didn't have. So I wish, if I had a good technical serve from when I was younger and I was able to practice 10 years, you're like, wow, with a guy 6'5", he has all this, and stuff. So I think that's massive. Um, and then I guess the other guys you mentioned, yeah, Eubanks, I played him in college tournament in maybe my sophomore year. And same thing, like guy was just bombing serves. I think with a guy like him, he was just slicing every backhand. So chip return, chip the backhand versus now, he's coming over it. That Wimbledon tournament that he just had this year, he had like the most winners in history and stuff. Like backhand got a ton better. Like he always had the serve and forehand, but I think it also just shows like he was at that challenger level for like 3-4 years. So it's like you really do need that persistence and to stick through things, because if not, then it's like you get to that point where you quit. Like I've seen a bunch of guys that were maybe 300-400 thinking about quitting and stuff. Same thing. Then they have a great tournament because the pressure's off. And then, now a few of them are top 100. So it's just crazy to see kind of how that mentality where it really does come down to maybe a tournament or something. Because you can have one really good tournament and there's so many points and money and stuff that it can like help you for the rest of the year and stuff. So like now Eubanks is top 30, he's getting into all the Masters 1000 stuff. So like the one tournament from Wimbledon where he goes from 80 to 30, that's massive for this next year he's set. Although then it gets tough. Obviously, he has those points to defend from winning a 250 and then Wimbledon. So he's probably has 1,500 points to defend next summer, but then you feel the pressure. So I think kind of the same thing when I got ranked, where you do really well. Now everybody kind of wants to beat you and have that target on your back. So the defending the points is where it can get tough as a pro too, because I mean, obviously you don't look all that stuff, but you remember, okay, I had a really good run last summer, so I have a lot of points coming up to defend. So that first year is a lot easier because you don't have any points. Everything's kind of every point that you win, you move up, versus then after that first year or the second year and stuff, then now you're starting to defend. So I think it gets a little tougher, and then also guys know you a little bit more. So maybe that first time you go out there play them, everything's fresh. I don't know them, they don't know me. And then once you start playing them again the second time, scouting starts getting into it, because like, all right, I know this guy, I know his tendencies and stuff, maybe break points this or which side he absorbs better on, which side he adds power. So it's like all these things then at that, higher level, they start to matter more and stuff. So I think the last guy, Rinderneck was the last guy. I played him in qualies in a future back when he was just starting out. And then now he's, top 70 in the world, which is pretty crazy. I think I remember, I lost 3 and 4. I thought, played a decent match, but you never think at the time that now, the guy's going to be top 100. But that's the thing where you stick at it, you really have a good coach, team around you, and you can invest 5 years and really kind of, try to play the long game, as you mentioned earlier. Like that's what you have to do. Because if you don't, then it's almost like you're not going to make it, because there's so many guys out there. But if you can really stick at it and keep trying to improve and stuff, I think that's how you see these guys doing what they can, later on in their careers now.
Yeah. So on that note, talk to us about the decision to go pro in the first place, and then kind of the grind of tour life. And did you change anything about your routine, kind of going from college to pro? How did that the first year look?
Yeah, so I'd always kind of wanted to. I'd always said I wanted to go play afterwards, but didn't kind of have like a set time. So it was always kind of like, let's reassess after a year. So um the hardest part is initially getting into the tournaments, because like when you graduate, you have no points, no ITF, no ATP, no nothing. So you almost need to kind of go to one of these places, get into qualies, or actually at the time they didn't even have the ITF points. So now at least, like if you lose last round of qualies, you'll have a few, so you'll be above people who have nothing. But at that point, you needed kind of 1 point to get you in. So I was like, all right, I need to get a point as fast as possible, because that's kind of the most important thing, because that gets you into all the tournaments. So I graduated in June, and the US ones are really tough to get into. So I'm like, all right, I need to go overseas somewhere. So went back, did a month in France with two of the guys from Davis that were still on the team. So I'm like, all right, let's try to, repeat the success, what worked before. Got a bunch of matches, got some confidence, won a little money. That's the nice thing also too, because you're usually staying with host families over there, where they'll put you up for the tournament or the weekend, and then anything that you make is just kind of cash straight in your pocket. So I did that, and then went straight to Portugal. Portugal was hardcore, so I went over there, and I think I qualied my first week, and then I think I got my point my second week, if I remember. So qualies are tough. That's almost like you hear this from guys on the tour, even at the challenger level or the ATP, versus that qualies. No matter what it is, those guys are super motivated, because that's kind of like, if you can win a match or two, getting into the main draw is like so much more money. So sometimes qualies can even be tougher than that first round, because everybody's kind of, it's life or death. Everybody's trying to get that first point, where then they can kind of, get you in there. So I think I had a couple tough three setters, and then I got in there, played a guy who was maybe 500 my first match in the main draw. I think I had a good win over him, and then next match lost 7-6 in the third, 7-5 in the tiebreak. So it's like, but for me that was great first week. You know, you qualify, get that point, because as soon as you can get, the earlier you can get that first point, the better, because now you're kind of into every qualies after that. But some guys, it can take them 6 months, like some good college players, even today, to get that first point. And that's just, it's just time you're burning, because you know, you can be playing qualies, playing, maybe you qualify, lose main draw, have a tough draw. So it's like, it's tough kind of psychologically, because you see these guys maybe a couple points, but maybe they're not as good, because there's obviously a big disparity there, and you're just like, come on, how can I not get that first one? So for me to do that pretty early was huge, because I think um, that helped me a ton, just knowing that I'm in, because it's tough to plan your schedule, because maybe if you're on the alternate list, you don't know if you're going to be in or not, but with 1 point, you're kind of for sure into any 15K or most 25K qualities. So kind of got that first one, and then just kind of learned a lot that first couple months kind of on the tour, just because it's like, it's a lot different than college, because college, you have school, you know, there's, you know, social life, there's a lot of things there, versus when you're on tour, there's really nothing. So you have a ton more just kind of free time, which is kind of, it's nice. And it's also kind of weird, because you're used to, like, as a student athlete, like managing your time really, really well, which you kind of have to do, versus now, like, I play a match, it's 2 o'clock. Okay, what am I going to do from 2 to 10? So I think that's where a lot of guys, they either kind of just try to explore the cities, you know, or you need something to kind of keep your mind off of tennis. Because if you're too much tennis all the time, that can really hurt you. So I think for me, it was reading. I read a lot those first couple of years and stuff, just kind of books on anything from, you know, sports to psychology to business, investing and stuff. So I think I was always trying to find something to do with that time. I know some people maybe even take an online MBA class, you know, they do something, because it's like you need something to get yourself out of tennis. Because if you're too much, then it's just like, you're obviously, it's good. You need to reflect on the matches and think. But if it's 24/7, like you almost just go crazy, because it's like, it's too much.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say like a lot to unpack there. I think one of the things you were talking about was you got your futures point basically as your or first ATP point. You basically your second event. And as you said, it takes
Yeah.
guys like a lot of time. I think one of the things in related to playing like good competition really early was, if I'm not mistaken, in your junior year you played like Fairfield Challenger and you had the chance to play like Nakashima as
Yeah.
well. What was the
Yeah.
gap like from that point to when you decided to go pro? Like, what did you think about the difference between your level then versus afterwards? Like after you played Brandon, did you still think that it was possible?
Well, at the time, Brandon was like maybe 15. Like I didn't even
Yeah.
really know who he was at that point. So I'm like, oh, come on, like I'm losing to some 15-year-old and stuff. But then obviously now then he's top 50 in the world. So you can see that he was obviously really good. And then I trained with him actually a lot when after I graduated. So when he was about maybe 17, 18, for kind of those 2 years off and on with down in San Diego with Christian Grow. So I think yeah, just being able to kind of see him develop, like playing him at 15, then seeing him 17 and 18. Obviously, the game kind of stays the same, where forehand, backhand, serve, but you just see kind of the skills. Like before, maybe he could only do this, and then now he's coming in. So it's really cool for me to kind of see from that coaching eye, like you kind of see these smaller things. Like you're not gonna forehand's not going to change crazy most likely. Like you kind of have the technique locked in, but tactically, like different skills, like patterns and stuff, like that's where things can really get a lot better. So I think seeing that stuff change, you know, Brandon got a lot better those last few years in juniors and stuff, and then obviously kind of transitioned to the pro tour as well.
No, 100%. Maybe like moving closer towards like the end of like towards the peak of your pro career, like you reached like top 600 or top like 638. Like what was the next phase for you like at that point once you like got to the top?
Yeah, I mean it's tough because like at that point, like you can get into some challengers, but it's like you almost need to get up to top 400 to kind of be in challengers consistently, which it's tough. Like 400 to 600, maybe it's not a huge gap, but it's just a lot of points, you know. So maybe I don't remember the exact points, but maybe you have to double your points. It's like from 600, you have a few good tournaments. Like you just need to be more consistent with it. So it kind of got to the point where I was like, all right, I had a couple good tournaments, but to be able to sustain it and do it like all year long, you really need that consistent level. Because if you don't have that, then it's very difficult because you can't kind of have streaky and be a few good tournaments at the futures level. You can do that maybe at the challenger and ATP because the points are so much more. But from a future standpoint, you really need to be consistent and do it, you know, half the year at least, because you need to almost get up to 400 kind of as fast as you can. Because I feel like guys kind of sometimes get stuck at the futures level where they feel like, you know, they never get out of it. So I think you almost need to there's a few big rankings and stuff. So you kind of need to get to first point, then 800 kind of is your next fastest because 800 you could start getting into main draws where you don't need to qualify. And then you go 800 to 400, 400 starting to get into challenger main draws, and then 400 to 240 to get into or slam quality. So those are kind of the four big ranking points. And I feel like you need to get to each of them as fast as you can. So first point is as fast as you can, then 800, and then 400, and then 240. So kind of after doing it for a few years, I mean, I loved it. I got to travel and, you know, do something that I was really passionate about. But I kind of got to the point where it didn't feel like I was still improving as much. And kind of, I'd always been on that trajectory from high school to college to even the first couple of years of pro where I felt like I was on this rocket ship. And then I feel like I got to the point where I was kind of plateauing. And I think I got to the point where I wasn't enjoying it as much, felt like I wasn't improving. And to me at that point, it's like, okay, then what am I still out there doing it for? You know, I obviously I love the travel and that kind of things, but I kind of was getting burned out a little bit. So I think for me, it was just, you know, really important to kind of, you know, be either getting better at it and moving up. And since I kind of got to that point and I was like, 638 is great, but you're still pretty far out from 400. And I mean, you're not making any money at that point. So it's like you're just kind of doing it for, you know, because you love it. And that's kind of when I got to the point where I was like, you know, this is great. I did it for 3 years. I wouldn't trade it for the world. But I was realistic in the sense that I wasn't going to be, you know, maybe if I played a longer, I could have got to maybe 400 or 500, but I was never going to be to that 250 or, you know, where I was, that's the break even point. So I was never going to be, you know, making money from tennis.
Got it, man. And I don't want to open a Pandora's box here and talk about Baseline Project, which me and P have have talked about at length on a previous episode. But you kind of already answered one of my questions, which was how you knew you were ready for that next chapter.
Yeah.
But talk about the transition then from, you know, professional life to whatever was next. How did that feel?
Yeah. So it kind of got up until I played a challenger down in Australia my January before COVID. Um, and then Southern California, everything was kind of still pretty wide open through COVID. Like tennis courts were closed in some parts of the country, but not kind of around my area and stuff. So probably was a mistake looking back, but I thought that tournaments were going to come back quicker. So even through COVID, I was playing 6 days a week. So I kind of got burned out because and then they kept pushing it back. They're like, no tournaments before May and then June and then July. And I don't think they came back to like the fall. So for those 3, 4 months, I was practicing every day, which is great. But it's tough to like be practicing for something without a goal because you didn't know when the next tournament was going to be. So I think it got to the point where I was getting really burned out. So I at first, like before, I used to love practice every day. Like it never got to the point where I didn't like it. It started with like 1 day a week where I wasn't enjoying it. Then it became 2 days a week. Then it became 3 days a week. I'm like, well, shoot, like if I keep doing this, I'm gonna like hate tennis. I didn't want to get to that point because it is something that I'm very, you know, passionate about. So I think I came to the sense it was around maybe June, June of 2020. And this was right when tennis was starting to come back from the exhibition standpoint. There was the Pro Tennis Series in Bradenton, Florida, and then Newport Beach. So basically, what it was guys from 2 to 600 that were basically getting paid per match, getting paid really well, and it went on for about 4 months. So I was right outside. I think I was maybe 650-ish at the time. So I like called the guy. I'm like, hey, is there any chance I can kind of get in there? And he was like, actually, we need a tournament director. So I was able to run it. So that was kind of a great experience to kind of do something um, that, it was kind of on the other side of the, tennis. So you're still kind of managing the event, doing operations and stuff. And it was a lot, but I think I learned a lot those 4 months. And then I was also able to place some too. So whenever we kind of needed an alternate, I was kind of the guy that filled in. So that was fantastic. Played probably in the 4 months, we were playing almost every day. Like again, probably played too much. I think I probably played, I don't know, 80, 90 matches in 4 months, like crazy amount of tennis. So, but it was also the opportunity where I'm playing these guys 2 to 600. So it's like, again, I was kind of that underdog again, kind of, you look back and the same thing happened in, high school, the college now to this. So I was like, I can't turn down this opportunity to play all these guys 2 to 600, which is great. But it was too much tennis. I was burned out at that point. My left wrist is also bothering me. So I was kind of, paying through playing through pain. And yeah, so I kind of realized after that, I maybe played only 1 or 2 tournaments after that, but it was kind of the point where I was ready to do something else. And then January of 2021, UTR came out with their 25K pro circuit. So it was kind of a natural transition where I had played, kind of already ran something for 4 months. And then now I started with UTR part-time for about a month or two, and then went full-time with them, kind of with that pro tennis tour for about 2 years. Still involved with it a little bit now, but I was doing kind of a little bit everything from recruiting the players to running the events or finding the venues and stuff. So it was kind of a pretty natural transition.
Nice, man. And what are you up to now?
Yeah, so still working for UTR Universal Tennis. A little bit more on the pickleball side now. So we launched into pickleball about maybe 5, 6 months ago. So kind of trying to do the same thing in the pickleball industry as we did in tennis. So we have the tournament software to run pickleball events. We're working on a rating for pickleball. So it's going to be exciting to kind of see what happens with that sport. Obviously, everything's so new. It's kind of the wild, wild west where everybody's trying to figure out what's going to happen with that. But yeah, we have a good team with pickleball and stuff that's trying to really grow it and stuff, and kind of expand our reach, because it's kind of a natural from tennis into the other racket sports, where a lot of our clubs, we have a bunch of clubs across the country and globally as well, have pickleball as well. So they're reaching out, when are you guys going to have pickleball and stuff? So it's kind of a long time coming, with pickleball, that we're finally here.
You did mention as well offline that you're doing a little bit of coaching. Do you
Mhm.
mind sharing some of your philosophies? I know you've worked with some top juniors that are just starting their college careers.
Yeah, I think the last couple of years I've tried to, coach a little bit. I wasn't really to the point where I wanted to be on the court 8 hours a day, because kind of after getting burned out. So it was kind of a natural where, 2, 3 days a week with a couple kind of juniors, here and there, and I was still hitting a lot. So it was kind of good for me to, stay in shape, get the exercise, and I also enjoyed it too, like hitting with a lot of these good juniors and stuff. So maybe I wasn't necessarily competing, but still just kind of doing a lot of live ball drills, a lot of baseline games, and the kind of a lot of stuff like that. It was really fun for me to kind of just to help some of these juniors improve, and just kind of share my experiences and stuff, because I do feel like I've been kind of at all the different levels, and I know kind of what it takes to get there, to junior, to college, to pro and stuff. So it's not massive differences, that's the thing, but it's like if you can kind of incorporate some of these smaller things, just a lot of it's kind of decision making. A lot of the coaches kind of really help me, so I feel like I have a pretty good understanding of what ball needs to be played at what time. So it's like whether we're doing live ball or some kind of different situational stuff, just trying to figure out, okay, you're in this position, what's the highest chance to give you? Because I feel like a lot of times you'll bail out, you'll try to that slap foreign winner that you'll make 1 out of 10 times on the run. So just trying to help people get more discipline. And then, say they do make the wrong decision, stopping them right then and there, like, okay, what were you thinking here? Why did you choose that? And saying, look, if I was in this situation, I would have played this shot, and just kind of educating them that way and stuff, so that maybe the next time in their situation, then, they try to make the better choice at stuff. So a lot of it kind of, tactically, and trying to, you know, help them kind of also, in tournaments as well. Like I feel like a lot of times the scouting kind of gets over, there's too much into it when really it's kind of very simple. Like you look at their two strokes, their forehand or backhand, which side are they better at generating power? A lot of guys, it's the forehand side versus what side are they better absorbing, which a lot of times it's the backhand side because what a lot of the time people playing inside out forehands to their backhand. So naturally guys defend better on the backhand, but normally the best way to do it is to attack the strength. You attack their forehand because a lot of times they don't do that. So I was the same way. I was really good at absorbing on the back end because playing Gage Brimer all the time, he's ripping balls from his forehand to my backhand. So it's like, it's really simple, but I feel like a lot of the time, we don't look at it that way. So, look at it, see which way they generate better and which time they absorb better at. And then just obviously you're not going to go there every time. You're obviously going to mix it up, but maybe on a big point, which side he's better at. Okay, let's try to go to the side that he's weaker at. So you kind of look at these things, you look at the court positions, like is he a clay court? Is he really far behind the baseline? Then maybe you're going to throw in a few more drop shots or angles. So it's just you kind of have a game plan against because you've seen there's probably a bunch of different types of players, the counter punchers, the aggressive players, the serve volleyer. So you kind of know tactics that you're going to use because I've played all of them and stuff. So now when you kind of see it in juniors or these college guys and stuff, I can kind of give them a pretty good scouting report. I feel like just, basically by them telling me a few things.
Sorry, I was muted there. Alec, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on. I think this was super insightful. The stories were really, really cool. Um, if you don't mind, I just wanted to finish with a quick rapid fire round here.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to ask you a couple questions. First thing that comes to mind, fire away.
Yeah.
You ready?
Let's do it.
All right. So favorite food,
Italian.
favorite restaurant,
I'm gonna go with sushi. There's one in Newport, so it's called Wasa Sushi.
nice. Favorite book. Because you're a reader, I'll ask favorite book.
That's tough to choose one. Let's see. First one that comes to mind. I'm gonna do Mindset, Carol Dweck. That one really helped me. That was a good one.
Favorite movie.
Movie, I always loved The Italian Job. That was my favorite one growing up. It's a good movie.
Absolutely phenomenal.
That's a great
Yeah,
movie.
that was
Yeah.
a really good movie.
Favorite type of music.
Kind of like a little bit of everything. Recently I'm in kind of 80s, 90s.
Favorite hobby outside of tennis.
Um, Favorite hobby
Pickleball is not
outside.
allowed. Pickleball is not allowed
Yeah,
as
no
a
pickleball. I have a little bit of kind of a side business, a travel business. So that's kind of my hobby where I've been kind of booking a lot of flights and stuff for a lot of tennis players and other people too. So that's kind of a hobby right now.
Nice. Favorite city.
City, I love Melbourne, Australia. I've been there 3 times, and that's always a really fun one. So get down there if you get the chance.
Favorite shot.
Um, Either drop volley or backhand down the line.
Ooh, interesting. Feathery touch. Favorite player.
Fed was always the guy that I love watching. Just he makes it look so easy and stuff. So I always love watching Roger.
And then excluding Federer, favorite kind of overall athlete or sports person.
Kobe Bryant, love watching him, and really sad, obviously, what happened and stuff. But probably loved reading his book, Mamba Mentality and stuff. So tried to take a lot of the mental side and stuff from him.
I've got it right behind me.
There we go.
Well,
Go.
Alec, really, really appreciate the time. This was an awesome conversation.
Yeah, no, appreciate for having me on and stuff. So yeah, thanks for the time, guys.